So I've made a physical architecture for the Grillmaster natural gas grill, and I've set up a realization matrix where I've gone ahead and I've put realization relationships in between the physical operations and the physical blocks and the logical ones. And so note that we want to have a physical element realizing one or more logical elements, and then it should have its own copy of the operations just as the logical level did, where now we can customize that to the specific realization that we're doing in our physical architecture. And so notice that there is one extra element that we should realize, not just the block, which is like an assignment or an allocation, and the operations and functions it has to perform, but we should also realize the ports and become more specific. So in this case, there's a natural gas port, and this really should be now a standard pipe fitting or some other very specific type of port. And so we're going to go ahead and build out a table to show us these realization gaps. So I would like to point out that when you're in a dependency matrix like this, one of the nice things you can do is pick columns or rows without relationships, and that'll let you find gaps. So in this case, we have the logical elements in the columns. We want to go ahead and pick the columns that don't have relationships, and these are the unrealized things in the logical architecture that still have not been realized. So I've built a realization gap check here as a generic table. So let's go ahead and add a custom column for ourselves. And we want to see what blocks these are supposed to realize, the one-to-many in the logical architecture. So we're going to say this realizes logical block. And we're going to go ahead, and this is just a simple, in this case, it's just a simple navigation, and we're the source and they're the target. So when I say OK, you'll see that this realizes gas line and gas burner and that sort of thing. Okay, fine, no problem here. So here's our physical ones, here's the logical ones. Now we need to see what things that the logical blocks own that we don't realize. What are our gaps? And so let's go ahead and create that. So I'm just going to call this realization gaps. And so we're going to start off with a meta chain starting with us. And we're going to go from us, and we're a direct relationship of source. We want realizations. We want the target. And the target's going to be a block. And we want the members of that block, which returns basically all the properties and things that it happens to own. And so we'll go ahead and we will choose operations and proxy ports. And so this is going to show us all of the realization. So this is all basically everything that the logical block owns. We have to subtract out the things that we have that actually are pointing to those. So this is everything. We need to subtract out the ones that we do realize to get the gap. So we're just going to go ahead and tweak this, and we're going to make an exclude. And so the exclusion is going to be from this set. So we'll drag that on the from. And what are we excluding? Well, we're going to exclude so what happened here is that because this was a physical element here, it was locked to physical, and I really want to go to block. So I'm doing that. So we now have the members that we own, and those are all the direct relationship of source, and those are realizing, and these are the targets of those realizations. And I want my context to be this, so I can just drag it on there. So now it's context this. And so when I say OK, the operations should all vanish, and we're just left with the ports. So these are the things that haven't been realized yet. And so we would then go through here and change this from a natural gas port to a more specific type and then realize it. And so I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video, but that would be the next step. So if I say that this gas line connection realizes this gas line connection, as soon as I realize it, I can come back here, and when I refresh this, you'll see that that gap goes away. You can also do the reverse to show excess functions or connections that you have that the logical architecture does not. But that is how we use meta chains and excludes to help us identify gaps in our physical architecture.